good place to start, I think, would be just talking about what human design is and what it can actually, the blueprint that it can actually do for people.
For shamanic human design, you mean, right? So, um, shamanic human design really is a mixture of shamanic practices along with human design, which is the blueprint, the body graph that you can get through human design. And what I usually say is when people are just, you want me to stop?
Mm.
Okay,
Oh,
sorry.
no, you're good.
But so what I usually say when I'm first introducing people to it is, the easiest way to look at it is an instruction manual for yourself. So, there's times in your life where can't, things aren't going right, or you can't figure out what to do. And basically, your divine blueprint, which you can get through human design, really becomes an instruction manual for how you were energetically put together in this lifetime. And when you add in the shamanic piece to it, now you take something that is giving you the instruction, and it's something you actually can put into practice and start the deconditioning and the deprogramming and the healing process so that you can really, start to live your life as your most authentic self and figure out not only what that looks like theoretically or on paper, but what it actually looks like in practice.
So if somebody like wanted to start like baseline, I want to get into shamanic human design. I don't
Mhm.
know how. I don't even know what it is. Like, where would you send me?
Mm. Well, that's a great question. I would probably start with grabbing your design, your blueprint, which you can get on our website, um, and start there. And then from that place, I would start to look a little bit more into the top three things in your blueprint, which are usually type, authority, and strategy. I will also tell you that, the way that Jocelyn and I like to look at this is you can pull that chart to get an overview, but really putting things into practice as soon as you possibly can is a way to really start infusing anything that you want your intention into your life to begin with. So also there's a component of just seeking out some really basic daily, what we would call rituals, to help you become more aligned with your authentic self.
So like if I don't already have my rituals in place, or like I know some, or I do like some sometimes, like how would I find rituals that align with my human design but also align with like me personally?
Mm-hmm. That's a great question. Um, well, that's a little bit of like what Jocelyn and I do,
Mm.
so really there is a component to working with people, and curating with them based upon their individual design,
Mm.
what are routines that are going to be best for them. And yet, I would also say once you start, there are some basic rituals that are pretty much across the board if you feel called to them, because we never want you to do anything that you don't feel called to. But if they feel good to you, that you can do pretty much every morning, and maybe every afternoon or every night before bed. And those are standard enough when it comes to daily practices that even those small shifts will feel like giant leaps for you
Mm.
to really start to align your energy to a frequency that is actually magnetizing into what you're actually seeking. Um, I don't know if that makes
Oh
sense
yeah,
or answers the question.
definitely.
Yeah.
So like when if I meet with you guys and you help me to understand like where to start with my rituals, or like how to start incorporating them, like what are what are ways that I could start, um maybe like doing something right now?
Uh, the first thing I would think of is everybody would benefit from just taking a couple moments, I'm going to say in the morning,
Mm-hmm.
and just trying to find their center.
Mm.
And that can look a little different for every person,
Mm-hmm.
especially based upon your type
Mm.
in human design.
Mm-hmm.
But, you know, we so frequently have been put on a program of get up, do the things, go to work, come
Mm.
home. You have to break that cycle. You have to start to pull yourself from that. And so now we're in a place where things like meditation and breath work, those are much more accessible to
Mm.
people now, mindfulness practices even. But that's really that just that small shift. I would encourage even less than 5 minutes, especially if you're somebody that's never done anything like that. Just a couple breaths, and a moment. Maybe it's for the length of a song that you love.
Mm.
Maybe it's silence, but that, and I'd start in the morning. But if morning's not your time of day to do something like that, then honor that and do it in the evening instead.
Mm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, because one thing that I hear a lot is that I don't have time. I can't get my mind to turn off. Like
Mm-hmm.
all all those things, and that are really ultimately like excuses for us not taking, even if it is like you said, 3 to 5 minutes
Mm-hmm.
to ground yourself and even just come back into your body, right?
Mm-hmm.
So I guess like how do you start to take a look at combining practices like that, even if they're simple, like simple 5 minute rituals or 5 minute meditations? Like, how do we start taking a look at that in combination with like our human design blueprint?
Mm. It really starts out with knowing what your type is. I mean, that's getting to understand how you were actually divinely built to exist
Mm.
is really important. And that is something that you would want to look at in a report. So you can actually get a free report on our website as well,
Mm-hmm.
because the way that a generator goes about doing something, and for anybody that's out there watching this, that might not mean anything to
Mm.
someone right now in this moment. But the moment you start reading about your type,
Mm.
something's just going to click into place for you. And you're going to be like, what? And
This makes so much
yes,
sense.
yeah, the first time I ever read anything about my type,
Mm.
I legitimately had one of those moments where I was like, am I like bugged? Like, who is watching me?
Yeah.
And I mean,
And how did they know?
it
Yeah.
was like eerily
So on point.
accurate.
Yeah.
Yeah, really. And there was also this massive relief
Mm.
that came with knowing that I am built perfectly exactly the way I am.
Mm.
That the things that I have found myself struggling with for almost the entirety of my life, I'm going to say, so I'm 43 years old. I'm going to say a good 38 years, because I think the
Mm.
last time I felt perfectly at ease with who I was probably when I was about 5 years old.
Wow.
And that's not everybody's story.
Sure.
But for me, and then to know that, like, holy crap,
Mm.
everything from that point forward was really me giving in to conditioning,
Mm-hmm.
giving in to the programming that was sometimes actively being sort of provided to me, and other time in a way that's assertive feels a little harsh to me, but I'm going to say in an assertive way. It's like being given to you to do things a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
And then there's a lot of passive conditioning that happens, and a lot of passive programming that happens. But to be able to read my type and be like, whoa, I am not my really internal feelings and the way I exist or want to really exist, that is actually the way I should be existing, and I should stop shoving that down and boxing it in, and or trying to fit into another mold
Right.
that I'm not created that way.
And telling myself that I'm wrong.
Oh,
Like year after year after year, like you're wrong, bad, not good enough, like, and
all
how devastating that is
mm-hmm.
for year over year over year over year.
Yep.
It's almost like continuously telling myself that I'm bad.
Oh, yep. I'm
And
made wrong. There's
yeah.
something wrong. I'm broken.
So, like, I guess for anybody who's watching this brand new to the concept of human design, my question would be like, because you mentioned the word types,
Mm-hmm.
so like maybe just like a quick overview
Mm-hmm.
of like what type even is, like maybe not break down like super in the weeds of each one, but just
Mm-hmm.
like why
Yep.
do we start there?
Yeah. So they call we talk about shamanic human design because what Jocelyn and I do is a combination of those two things. But in traditional human design is a system. It is very scientific in a way, at least the way that people see it, in just like other systems that exist. And so within the system, which for us is, the universe that we exist in, there are 5 types. And that type is your overall like build. It's the way your energy is built. And so based on that build, it tells you how you're going to pull energy, utilize energy, etc. And so we need to start with identifying how are you built? Because, just like an engine for a car, which by the way, I don't know very much about, but what I will tell you is if you put, an engine that's built for one type of car into another, I think to myself, like if I put a NASCAR engine, right, into like
my 2012 Nissan.
Well, I was gonna say like a Pinto from the 70s, like,
and it's gonna fucking blow up.
It's just not gonna work right, right? So now you're like, why doesn't my car work right? Why does it keep breaking down on me? Why won't it do the things it's supposed to do? Well, because your engine, it's not the right engine for the vehicle,
right?
Or the body isn't the right body for the engine. Where if you just knew how it was supposed to, what it was, you would know that and you'd be able to work with that. So that's where type, it really tells you like what is your overall energetic build. And starting there can open you up to so many things, honestly, right away clicking into place for you in your life. And so 5 types, I'll just mention them here so people know. You can be a pure generator, a pure manifester, a manifesting generator, a projector, or a reflector. So those are the 5 types in the system. And I would also mention that pure generators are the largest amount of the population. Last time estimates were given about 37% of the population. And then the second largest type is manifesting generators. They're a hybrid of the system, and there's about 33% of them in the population. And from there, the percentages go down drastically. Projectors are about 20%. Pure manifestors are about 9%, and reflectors make up 1%. So this is also another really big impact on your type. Can you imagine being somebody who only makes up 1% of the population? Only 1% of the population is built like you. That means that your experience in this lifetime and within this system is probably going to feel dramatically different than 99% of the other people in the world. I think that's important for us to acknowledge. And even if you're not part of that 1%, for the 37 percentile people and the 30, to acknowledge that there's 1% of our population out there that is experiencing a dramatically different world than they are experiencing. And that's even beyond all of the facts that we only ever perceive things through our own point of view to begin with.
Yeah. And how like what a relief it can be to find that out for me, but also to be able to convey that to others, right? Like
Oh,
I'll
yeah.
say, even me just learning about my type, like it was not only relieving, but it provided me the ability to express to the people I love
Mm-hmm.
how I function and the ways in which I thought they were wrong or bad, and instead say, this is me, and I need you to like, understand and also work with it, right? Like, I don't have we don't have the level of energy that someone else might have. We
Yep.
we we don't have the ability to do things for 12 hours at a time, and like what a relief that is, like such a relief. Like I let myself off the hook,
Yeah.
like instead of trying to run myself into the ground in a world and in a culture where it tells us that like in order to be anything, you have to hustle, you have to be perfect, you
Mm-hmm.
have to go hard if you want to be successful,
Yep.
and how damaging that is to
Mm-hmm.
to all of us really,
Yep.
but
Oh, yeah.
especially not knowing how you're built and
Mm-hmm.
using human design to better inform you and the people around you
Yep.
to be more successful, more whatever, energetic, whatever you want, you can have. And I guess my last question maybe for right now, because we've covered
Mm-hmm.
a lot of information,
Yep.
and maybe I guess the last thing would be kind of how do we tie how when we talk about, because we're talking about two modalities, shamanism and human design.
Mm-hmm.
So how do we, or how did you and Jocelyn really come to combine the two, and how would I kind of get there as a person just starting out? Like how would I get there to start combining my blueprint with practice?
Mm. That's a great question. So the way that the way that Jocelyn and I got there was I have the honor of getting to see Jocelyn work with clients on a day-to-day basis.
Mm.
And so I was seeing her not in her sessions individually, but I'd see a client come out and they would be talking in an open forum where like whatever, and they would say, "Oh, well, I tried this that Jocelyn told me to try," and then I would be talking about that. And I had this realization as I was talking with Jocelyn about human design, and she was talking about with her clients what she was experiencing, that how beneficial
Mm.
it could be if the people that were experiencing, her shamanic practices, her shamanic work, could have access to this instruction manual,
Mm.
of human design. And so then it became looking at their design, back to those three things that we talked about, really sticking hard pretty much to the type, the strategy, and authority. And then from there, accessing, practices that feel good
Mm.
to the type,
Mm-hmm.
to for the strategy, also picking rituals and practices that align with their decision making, which is their authority, and then honoring those three things. And so, but that can be different for each person that we work with. So
Mm.
it's also just empowering them to make decisions and choices that feel really right in their bodies.
Mm-hmm.
And so many of us have been taught that we must make these decisions with our mind, and yet everything about shamanism tells us to go back to nature,
Mm.
and human design tells us to go back to nature.
Mm-hmm.
Because what we know is in both of these places, the practice and the instruction manual, that when we sink into the natural order of the way we were meant to exist, we will always have the right answers and the path will open up for us.
Mm.
But when we get lost instead in our mind,
Mm-hmm.
that is where confusion sort of lies.
Mm-hmm.
So go back to the natural order of
Mm.
things. And for a long time we needed to rely on our mind
Mm-hmm.
as a species to keep us safe for evolutionary processes to occur.
Mm-hmm.
but we're beyond that now.
Mm-hmm.
We don't need that. So it's time to make this shift, which is why human design, shamanism has always been there. It's the constant,
Right.
right?
Mm-hmm.
Human design was really brought into earth and, in the 80s. And now it's had a couple decades to start to shift, just
Mm-hmm.
as our earth and our world is shifting. And that's where we can now see that human design partnered with this constant. It's like an upgrade, basically. We're getting this upgrade where they're
Mm-hmm.
like, hey, now you get both of the things.
Mm.
You don't only get the practices, which are consistent and you should be able to have had forever,
Mm-hmm.
but you also get the instruction manual that goes with it.
Mm-hmm.
So something that could have used to take you might have taken you 15 years to do,
Mm-hmm.
20 years to do, you get in these loops of like constantly needing to go back to the same old, same old.
Mm-hmm.
Now you can do like that.
Mm. Which is so exciting.
Super exciting. Super exciting. Yeah.
So, I mean, I feel like we covered a lot in a short amount of time. We talked about, like, just overall what shamanic human design is, what it's based on, its principles, how we can start to look at it and also
Mm-hmm.
apply it to our life. And really, like, I feel that the call to action, in this moment for anybody who's watching who wants to learn more would be like theritualspot.com and pulling your human design,
Yep.
familiarizing yourself with what the blueprint even is,
Mm-hmm.
because it is overwhelming in the beginning. It's a lot of
Yeah.
information. It's a lot. So
Mm-hmm.
sometimes we have to chunk it down into these small pieces
Yep.
and ask questions. And like, to me, that the action step is pulling that free report, and also like starting to schedule with like our teachers to learn more, whether that's Amber, Jocelyn, or a practitioner in your area,
Mm-hmm.
of like how to start incorporating these like life-changing really rituals and practices in our life for our own energetic blueprint. So